It's one of the fastest growing and most exciting air shows in Europe. Plains TV is thrilled to bring you live coverage of Antidotum Airshow Leszno for the very first time. The best of Europe's civilian airshow performers have come together, along with an enviable pick of military teams for this extraordinary flying display. And we'll be taking you into the middle of the action like never before, with live aerial filming over the course of the show. The Polish Air Force features strongly here, with spectacular flare-filled displays by the C-130 Hercules and the Tiger demo team. And we're also looking forward to the Leszno debut of the brand new M346 Belix solo display. Visiting from abroad, the PC-17, Swiss Super Puma, Slovenian PC-9 and a Swedish SK.60, performing at an air show for the very last time before its retirement from military service. Leszno is famous for its combat reenactments, comedy acts and other specially choreographed one-off displays, and this year's cast includes piston warbirds, classic jets and other airshow favourites such as Rich Goodwin's jet-powered pits. The airshow continues late into the night and concludes with a spectacular pyro display featuring the likes of the Bo 105, the Flying Dragons and the Aerosparx display team. Almost every kind of aviation is represented over the course of the roughly 7-hour flying display, from fast jets to unlimited category aerobatics, helicopters, paragliders and even hot air balloons, flying in stunning sunset conditions. Welcome to Leszno, and welcome to an airshow like no other. Good afternoon everybody from Antidotum Airshow Leszno here in Poland, where, as I'm sure you can probably hear and perhaps see on some of the images, and from the fact that I'm having to grip my notes with both hands to stop them flying away, the weather has been one of the big talking points here. After 12 consecutive shows without a single substantial weather disruption, let's just say the pressure has clearly been building up, and we've experienced an Antidotum Airshow like never before over the past 24 hours or so. Anyone who joined us over the course of yesterday's live broadcast will have noticed the rather abrupt ending as an electrical storm closed in on the airfield. We were ordered to evacuate our rooftop filming position, and very shortly after that the show was completely abandoned. It actually caused some quite major problems here, particularly in one of the car parks which flooded, and there were tractors pulling cars out of the car park until about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm pleased to say that the weather is better, different. We are expecting to see nearly a full flying display today. There are a few cancellations, a few amendments as a result of the weather, and that is because not so much the wind, but rather the fact that parts of the airfield have been rather soggy because of the rain that we have been experiencing. It is drying rapidly, the ground is starting to feel quite firm underfoot, but nonetheless the flying display has been pushed back by about half an hour to give the runway a little bit of extra time. We're also going to be starting with aircraft coming from other bases, helicopters and really light aeroplanes that aren't going to put too much pressure on the runway surface. Almost everything will fly at some point, just not quite in the order that we expected. The wind is going to die down according to the forecast. I'm also pleased to say that we have blue skies, scattered cloud. That cloud is going to lift and dissipate even more, and we are expecting by the time sunset comes around to have a pretty much cloudless sky, and hopefully one of the classic Antidotum airshow sunsets that you might have seen in pictures and videos from previous years. The wind, though, remains a problem. We're pretty much at peak wind now, gusting around about 30 knots, we think. It is going to die down slowly, but it's going to remain relatively strong, relatively gusty up until around 6 o'clock local time. That being said, most of the aircraft that fly before that point are ones that we have seen before as part of yesterday's live broadcast. The night show, which will be new to us, we're expecting really good conditions for that. Cloudless sky, as I mentioned, and the wind dropping down to probably only 6 or 7 knots. So, a very full flying display lineup, and I will run you through what we are expecting to see. I've got the list in front of me, and it is a long one, so buckle up. We are expecting to start at 15:30 local time, that is just under an hour from now, with the Cobra of the Flying Bulls. Then we've got the Bo 105 from the Flying Bulls, then another Bo 105, which on that occasion will be towing a glider into the air, flown by Guy Westgate for the heli-tow display that you might have witnessed being practiced on Thursday and also as part of the Airshow yesterday. Then we have the W3A Sokol from the Czech Air Force, so 4 consecutive helicopter displays at the start as we continue to dry out the runway here. Then we have Aaron Deliu in the Extra 330 SC, Slovenian Air Force PC-9M Hudornik, Aerobatic Team Orlik with 4 PZL 130s. We have the Corsair from Flying Legends. That actually dropped off the running order a little while ago, where things are being rejigged constantly to account for the conditions, but we think now this is our final running order. The Corsair from Flying Legends, the Carbon Cub from Luc Jepiella, the Catwalk wing walking display from Scandinavian Air Shows, the Equipe de Voltige from the French Air and Space Force, an Extra 330 SC, and we're expecting today that will be flown by Victor Lallouet. We've enjoyed seeing his colleague, the reigning world aerobatic champion Florent Audon, over the past 24 hours or so, performing both a practice and a display, but it will be his colleague taking to the air today. Then we have Grupa Akrobatynia Żelazny flying 2 Zlin 50s and 2 Extra 330s, the Flying Bulls T-28 Trojan, Rich Goodwin in his jet-powered Pitts S2 SE, the Polish Air Force M346 Bielik display, or the Master as you might also know it. Following that, we are very hopeful, it is a bit ambitious given the runway condition, but we are very hopeful that we will be seeing Millionaire's A26 Invader Millionaire S, making a very, very rare European airshow appearance. That's over from its home base in Texas. Following that, the Swiss PC-7 team and a special fly past with the Super Puma. P-51D Mustang Francis Dell from Flying Legends. And there's something appearing on the running order that I'm not quite certain about next, something that I thought had dropped off, and it does seem to have been added back. So, given it is a surprise edition, I'm not going to name that at the moment, because I'm going to seek a bit more confirmation on whether that is indeed happening. Following that, we have the Fly to Live paraglider team, and then the SK.60 from the Swedish Air Force. We're talking around about 8 o'clock local time at this point, so starting to get really nice skies. The wind will be dying down. The Red Bull Alpha Jets will be flying next, and then we have the very dynamic Polish Air Force C-130E Hercules with their daytime display profile. After that, we have a flare-filled performance from the Swiss Super Puma, then the delightful pair of gliders also flying with smoke and pyrotechnics of Red Bull Team Blanix, F-16 Jastrob, as it's known here in Poland, of the Tiger demo team of the Polish Air Force, will be flying at 9 o'clock local time tonight. Then we come into our pyro shows. The first of those will be Bob Grimstad in his Fournier RF4, his first public pyro display. Then we have Scandinavian Airshow's second slot of the day with a pair of Pitts Model 12s. Following that, what I think is the only jet in the world to perform a pyro display at airshows, a TS-11 Iskra from Fundasza Biało-Czerwone Skrzydła. Next, Team Thunder, a Thorpe T-18 and a Laser 230 over from Sweden performing a pyro show, a paraglider solo display, and then we're into our big hitters as far as the pyro is concerned. We've got the Bo 105 performing an extremely spirited firework-filled performance with a special surprise at the end. The C-130 will return to us for its massive flare dump, releasing somewhere in the region of 300 to 350 flares in the space of 10 to 15 seconds. Then we have the Bushcat demo team, the Fire Moths, a surprisingly entertaining trio, a quartet in fact this year of Flexwing Microlights. Scandinavian Airshow's third slot of the day will be their laser lights and pyro display featuring their Grumman Agcat and the Pitts Model 12, and then we finish with 2 Leszno regulars. They are almost always the finale of the show here, the Flying Dragons and Team Aerosparx. So, a very busy flying display lineup over the course of about 7 hours or so, and my goodness, if you think you've seen everything there is to see at Airshows, well, let's speak again at 11 o'clock tonight when this show wraps up, because there are things coming up today that I simply have not seen before at an airshow. Just to be clear, the airshow proper, which starts at 3:30 local time, will be broadcast exclusively on our streaming service watch.planestv.com, so there's still time to go and sign up over there if you haven't already. You will get access to our live broadcast from the airshow here in Leszno today, and in addition to that, you will get access to our back catalogue of programmes stretching back around 35 years, covering airshows right around the world. Of course, for the duration of your membership, you'll also get access to our upcoming live broadcasts, and some of the broadcasts you can expect to see later this season include the Duxford Battle of Britain Airshow in September, and also the Royal International Air Tattoo in July, plus a couple of more that I don't think we're quite ready to talk about at this stage. Now, I mentioned earlier there are things coming up today that I have simply never seen at an airshow before, and over the course of this live broadcast we're going to look back at some highlights from yesterday and some of those things that were completely novel and new to me, and then we will say, as we approach the start of the flying display proper, we'll say farewell to our viewers on YouTube and social media, and the rest of the show will be exclusive to watch.planestv.com. But nonetheless, if you are joining us on YouTube or Facebook, we've got some good action coming your way over the next hour as we recount some of the highlights of yesterday's show. And a personal highlight for me was a very last-minute addition to the flying display programme here. I've already mentioned it, the A26 Invader Millionaire S, over from the United States. It's in Europe to participate in the recent D-Day 80th anniversary celebrations. It was going to head home immediately afterwards, but instead the crew decided to stay on a little bit longer to participate in one, perhaps two public events, and we are extremely pleased and proud that the events they selected to perform probably the only public flying display of their European tour is Antidotum Airshow Leszno. Yesterday was my first time seeing an A26, a really nice display, a couple of lovely passes, a fast pass and a topside pass that stood out for me, and we've got now a clip of that performance from yesterday afternoon. And that, Luke, is the first time I've seen an A26 take off in my life.
The A-26 Invader, a bomber and a light attack aircraft of the Second World War, first flight in 1942, and was built in a similar configuration to the combat-proven A-20 Havoc, which was designed to replace, that this aircraft was ultimately designed to replace.
So coming round from the right for what looks like it's going to be a nice topside pass. Yes, there comes the bank. That's lovely.
This was one among the fastest World War II bombers, maximum speed of about 680 kilometers an hour. And it had, in fact, no speed restriction while in level flight. It features a crew of 3, a pilot, a navigator, and a bombardier, as well as an optional gunner. And again, produces about 4,000 horsepower apiece thanks to those twin double Wasp radial engines.
The A-26 was used in the Pacific, mainly to target Japanese forces in Indonesia, although the squadrons in the Pacific generally weren't very keen on the A-26 and were much happier with the older A-20, which offered substantially better visibility due to the placement of the engines. but by the time the A-26 had been suitably modified for use in that theatre, to the approval of those crews there, the war was virtually over. It had rather better luck in Europe, where it was introduced to limited service in 1944 and performed well in its early missions, so it was then introduced more broadly. By the end of the conflict, A-26s had completed over 11,000 missions during the liberation of Europe, dropping some 18,000 tons of bombs. Not all of those missions were bombing raids, though. Invaders also found utility in reconnaissance and night interdiction roles. And I suppose that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the Corsair. Multi-role aircraft is not a new concept. Well, the landing gear is now extended, but looking too fast for a landing, so I imagine this will be a dirty pass. The A-26 would see combat many times after the Second World War. It was used in Laos, Vietnam and Korea, but some of its most interesting deployments came not in the hands of the conventional military, but under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency, who flew A-26s as part of a covert air force in Laos, but also in a fascinating failed attempt to invade the island of Cuba in 1961. And you mentioned the Mustang, the A-26 being able to outrun it. We're going to see a Mustang fairly shortly, in around about 35 minutes from now. Flown by George Raab, who we saw in the Corsair earlier on, and that's P-51D Francis Dell. It's an interesting method of opening the cockpit canopy. So what an enjoyable display that was yesterday, and an A-26 Invader was not something that I had on my Airshow bingo card for 2024. You're looking there at a trio of gliders. In the foreground we have the SZ-59 Acro, which is being flown by Guy Westgate in his heli-tow display, which we'll be showing you a bit of footage of later. And behind it you see a Leszno regular, always a firm favourite here, and that is Red Bull Team Blanix. I say they're a firm favourite. You might perhaps be surprised to hear that a pair of gliders are the favourite in an airshow that also includes big military transports, warbirds, afterburning jets, but it is often surprising what acts make the largest impression here, and it's a very emotional performance almost that they perform right at around sunset, accompanied by live orchestral music, which we'll be bringing to you over the course of our live broadcast, and that music being provided on this occasion by the National Orchestra of the Polish Air Force. They will be performing on a stage directly behind us. Now, another special element of the airshow here at Leszno, in addition to the live music, is the fact that we are able to fly drones in the aerial display. This is something that they have been doing for filming purposes for several years here. It's been developed by Aerosparx drones, who are the world leaders in filming displays at air shows from drones. It's a process that's been built up gradually in cooperation with various national civil aviation authorities, and the Aerosparx drones team have now been droning at air shows all over the world dozens and dozens of times, but this is the very first time that we've been able to integrate their live drone filming into a Plains TV live broadcast. To my knowledge, it's also the first time that drone aerial filming at an air show has been integrated into any air show live broadcast, at least here in Europe. It has happened out in the Middle East and Asia on a few occasions. Now, we've got two kinds of drones that we are using. One of them is an FPV drone, and another is a much more cinematic one, which we are hovering further from the aircraft and getting some wide shots. But the FPV drone is really chasing down the aeroplanes as they perform their display, and we're about to see an excellent demonstration of that as we play back a clip from yesterday. Rich Goodwin in the jet pits, and I was joined for that display in the commentary position by Rich's engineer, Colin Hales. The takeoff roll is starting, the smoke is on, and this will be for one of his typical low knife edge passes. Oh, right. And immediately demonstrating that this is no standard pits by pulling straight into the vertical and climbing, rolling as he does so.
Well, Adam, there's a time to talk and a time to listen. And that aircraft just should not be making that noise.
So what is it that makes this aircraft special?
Just about everything. It's a standard S2S fuselage, but then we've gone for modified wings, a modified undercarriage, modified engine, cool air system, induction system, 6-into-1 tuned exhaust system. It just goes on and on and on. Well, I could bore you with the amount of modifications to this aircraft.
But the headline, of course, 2 Lynx turbojet engines.
Yes, that is another modification. It's brought on by the punters themselves, the good people who come to the air shows. They wanted to see something unique, something different that they hadn't seen before. And so Richard came to the conclusion that, okay, we've got the other jets, he's got just the Tower of Power, of course, but to bring something new and unique to the air show environment and to the scene, then what better than to strap 2 jet engines to the aircraft and give it a lot more thrust.
So we've just seen a flat inverted turn there using the enormous rudder, a custom-made rudder, I believe.
Indeed, yeah.
To help force the aircraft round while maintaining wings level, albeit inverted, then snap rolls, and about to go up into a vertical climb away from the crowd with more snap rolls.
How come you know his routine better than I do, Adam?
Because I've got it written down on a piece of paper in front of me, although that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm able to keep track of it.
Or that he's going to stick to it.
Yes.
So the aircraft actually changes quite a lot from what you see now to later in the performance. The jet engines, you will use 60 litres of fuel in the 10 minutes. So the aircraft is actually quite heavy, and at the moment he'll be doing manoeuvres that don't use the performance of the jet engines as much. He actually has to reduce the weight of the aircraft for it to perform better later.
And worth noting that they've got a reasonably limited endurance, these jets, only around 10 minutes or so.
They simply burn so much fuel. It's a very powerful engine, but a very thirsty engine, I would say. And there's 3 fuel tanks, of course. We need fuel for the petrol engine, the IO540, driving the propeller. Obviously, we need smoke oil for the smoke tank, but we also need jet fuel for the jet engines. So there's a very complicated pipework system inside the aircraft.
And also a smoke tank as well.
Oh, indeed, yes, yeah.
So we've got, I think, a double hammerhead coming up next.
He can use side thrust, and also he can use one jet fully open and the other closed. There's some type of, fiddle brakes as such. And obviously, therefore, you can vector the thrust to one side and hopefully do 2 hammerheads. There's the one, and just about 2. It's a new aircraft.
So a micro loop coming up next. What you would probably call a cool bit if this was a jet fighter. And now we're going to come into the first hover manoeuvre, and this made possible because with the jets, the aircraft has a thrust-to-weight ratio somewhere in the region of 1-to-1.
Indeed, you get about 1,100 pounds of thrust from the propeller engine. There are 350 pounds of thrust from each of the jet engines, which is another 700 pounds of thrust, giving about 1,800 pounds of thrust. And the aircraft weighs about 1,500.
So 2 types of hover in this aircraft. This is the first one. It's actually a very high angle of attack forward flight.
Well, there's a problem with this aircraft as it hovers. It's not a helicopter. It doesn't have a tail rotor, and there's nothing that could stop the airframe wanting to rotate around the petrol engine.
And we see that now, the second type of hover, which is more of a sustained torque roll.
Indeed. So if you want to keep level, you have to maintain about 12-15 knots airspeed to keep airflow over the ailerons to counteract the thrust of the or the torque of the propeller.
aileron rolls, then snap rolls, and then a torque roll in what Rich calls the Tower of Power. Now tell me a little bit about the development process.
Sorry, I'm in awe. Yes, a 4-year process. As with everything, it sounds like just bolt engines on, but it simply wasn't that easy. Lots of research, lots of development, lots of time taking. There's a lot of maths and science. This is one of my favourite manoeuvres called the Christmas tree, where he'll start to climb and create a cone or a Christmas tree as he gets tighter and tighter as he goes up. Most aircraft have enough thrust to descend and turn, but he has enough thrust to ascend and turn. And he'll try and bring the aircraft to a halt at the top, and then he becomes the angel at the top of the Christmas tree. But he says it's not that easy.
And a really interesting shaped smoke trail that's forming in front of us.
And then if all goes to plan,
spiralling down, flat spin down of some kind.
He's creating the trunk of the Christmas tree.
The
thought behind this.
Is that something you've just made up, or is that the genuine idea?
How dare you, Adam? I would never do that.
This looks like Rich is setting up for one of his trademark low knife edge passes.
But this time the aircraft is already a lot lighter. It will have burnt off some 40 to 60 kilos of fuel, and now its performance is quite a bit different.
Well, isn't that drone footage absolutely mesmerising? And more of that in just a moment, featuring one of the aircraft you can see the left of the shot now. But before we do that, I see Chris just asking, Adam, how many subs do we need for 100,000? Actually, I don't know. I don't have that information on the screen in front of me, but I know it's not very many. It's probably only a couple of hundred. And a challenge has been issued to you, the collective viewers of this stream, and you can help me out, because I've been told in my ear that if I can kind of entice you all to subscribe by the time that we call it a day here on YouTube in half an hour's time, then Ian will provide me with a nice warm waterproof coat for the Royal International Air Tattoo, or perhaps a lovely new talkback box for my commentary system. So that is I've got skin in the game here. Come on, subscribe to the TV YouTube channel and help me get a nice coat for it. And we're so close to 100,000. But let's stick with some drone action, because the aeroplane you were just looking at in that shot on the far left, the SZD-59 Acro of Guy Westgate, was involved in quite an extraordinary display yesterday, and it's something that we're going to see repeated today. Once again, there is some more incredible drone footage incoming. Let's take a look. There has had to be a lot of science to establish how long the rope should be. What could happen when the glider is released from the rope? Will it rebound upwards? Will it enter the rotor blades? What sort of rope should be used? How much flex should be in it? Should the weak link be at the top or at the bottom? Should the chain section be at the top or the bottom? How long should it be? And so on, and so on, and so on. And after the theory had been dispensed with, then there have been multiple training camps. The first time this was attempted, though, no one really knew what was going to happen. The area of uncertainty is the transition from forward flight into the hover that we'll see later, and that threw up some unexpected challenges.
We had the chance during its validation and rehearsal display to see this performed, and we're very excited to bring this to you, particularly with the drone shots that we're going to have today, as Guy Westgate lifts off behind the Bow 105, and we've got essentially three passes associated with this profile. The first is going to be a rolling pass from our left, in which Guy's going to come around, do full stick deflection rolls behind the helicopter. And unlike being towed behind an airplane, there's just a lot more, as you mentioned, Adam, to contend with.
Yeah.
It has to do with the big rotor blades up there whopping around and just the different aerodynamic features.
And the fact that this is an awful lot heavier than a typical tow plane, so it's creating a huge amount more turbulence than would be found behind, for example, the Pawnee, which is one of Guy's normal mounts for this roll-on tow stunt. Now, this is the first time that a roll-on tow has been performed in public behind a helicopter. It's a favourite of Guy's behind fixed-wing aircraft. He actually holds the world record for the most number of consecutive rolls while on aero tow, but this looks quite different and rather more spectacular. What a view.
So, Adam, that was impressive, but we're going to dial it up a little bit.
Yeah, now we're going to bring both aircraft to a stop, and this is a multi-person effort. There's two people in the cockpit of that Beau 105. There's Maciej Dominiak, who is the pilot, but then sitting alongside him is his team manager, David Vallas, and he is actually going to be leaning out of the open window because the airspeed indicator on the helicopter doesn't work below about 20 knots. So in order to establish that they're not moving relative to the ground, he will simply be sticking his head out and looking straight down.
They will also utilize just some visuals from the wingtip smoke as well. And once we get into the hover, you will watch that smoke perform some pretty unique movements, particularly off the thrashed wingtip vortices of the glider.
So decelerating now, a height of 1,000 feet for this maneuver. And the air brakes will shortly be deployed on the glider to assist in that deceleration. Guy will slowly be moving lower and lower relative to the helicopter to try and keep the tow rope taut. What you don't want is for the glider to stall when there's any slack in the rope, because that will put huge force on the rope and the helicopter itself. But there we are with a successful transition into the hover, and note that Guy has actually gone beyond the vertical. He is slightly upside down, and reaching the rope release switch from this position is immensely difficult for him within the confines of his 4-point harness. So he'll be straining to reach forward to touch the release switch any second now. Oh, this is the longest hover that
I was about to mention that we've seen thus far.
But there goes the release, effectively falling into the second half of a tail slide. And now, because it's Guy, we're going to go into some aerobatics. Guy is the 8 times British national gliding aerobatic champion. So there really is no better man to attempt what we have just witnessed today.
And it's my understanding too, Adam, that this is one. I'm not sure if Guy has much more than an hour in this particular sailplane.
Yes, this was brought here to Leszno specifically for this performance. It's not his normal mount. He normally flies an MD-M1 Fox or an S1 Swift, but this, the SZD-59 Acro, like those other two, it's a Polish design. The Polish have a long lineage of designing aerobatic gliders and gliders in general. In fact, if you go into town here in Leszno and come out of the railway station, the station has a glider gate guardian. So the amount of work, both in dollars and man hours, that has gone into that roughly 2-minute performance is unbelievable.
A lot of ingenuity and creativity in all of the flying display programs here, but particularly this, the heli tow. And of course, too, Adam, let's talk a little bit about the tow rope that they're utilizing this weekend, because it's got some special lineage to it.
Yes, and as Guy does his typically precise landing and comes to a stop, yes, let's mention the tow rope. It's not the first time it's been used for something high profile, because it was actually used on the James Bond film Spectre back in 2015 to assist in a helicopter stunt there. After the film was completed, the film company had no need of it, so it ended up going back into the gliding world and has been used for this performance. Well, Guy there gives us all a wave. He is so enthusiastically adored by the crowds. He is always performing some of the headline moments here at Antidotum Airshow Leszno, and so pleased to have him as part of the Antidotum family. So a tremendous display, and as you can see on the screen now, crowds of people people heading to the show site to watch the same again today. And we hope that you will watch the same again today with us as we continue live throughout the day exclusively on our streaming service watch.planestv.com. But until the flying display starts in a little over 20 minutes, we are going to continue with our preview show here on YouTube, and we've got a few clips from the past few days to show you, and we're now going to look at a couple of practice displays from 2 days ago. These are performances that we saw on the Thursday evening. Today is an historic day because we are expecting to see the last ever flying display appearance by a military operated Saab 105, or as it's known in Swedish service, an SK.60. And here is a little look at the SK.60's practice display from Thursday night. Now this is my favourite manoeuvre of the display. It's one of my favourite manoeuvres on the airshow circuit. It's so rare to see this performed by a jet, and I'm glad the other smoke pod has activated for a partial rolling circle. Rolling the aircraft continuously while transcribing a turn of around about 60 degrees. We see it sometimes from extra 300s. Not normally from a jet. That is exceptional, and we should mention the pilot who is providing this balletic performance. It is Captain Nils Sundström, known as Princess, who is now coming back towards us for an outside turn, so this time negative G all the way round rather than alternating between positive and negative G over the course of the turn. We'll see the aircraft rolling in now, holding it there, and now pushing. It's just ballet, isn't it?
It is. It's not loud, but it doesn't need to be.
No, and that's one of the assets of this show. They've recognised that it's not just noise and power that makes things special. Sometimes it's moments like this, and no doubt accompanied by a live orchestra tomorrow. So a quarter clover to reposition back onto the A axis, and exiting this into a 360-degree turn. If you're not familiar with that phraseology, A-axis is the line from left to right in front of us, parallel with the crowd line. B-axis is perpendicular to that, coming straight into us. Do you call it something different in America, X and Y?
We don't. We actually refer to it as different categories. So we have what are known as Category 3 lines, which are 500 feet from the crowd. 2 lines, which are 1,000, and then we have the Category 1 line, which is the 1,500 feet. We can wave it down to 1,200. But it has to do with aircraft speed as they perform aerobatics. So it's more of a standoff distance piece. But we don't actually reference. We usually just say behind the crowd or 90 degrees or 45 or something like that. But it's always enjoyable to see displays that use all the different dimensions of the box. It certainly makes for a grand performance.
It's not only photogenic, but it's also efficient. It makes good use of the time. It cuts down these repositioning maneuvers because you don't need to do a great big dumbbell reposition through 270 degrees. You can just whip it round in a turn, and then you're back on the 45.
Nice 4-point hesitation roll. I love the colors on the bottom of this airplane.
Yes, it is indeed the Team 60 liveried aircraft. They were predominantly in a standard training scheme, but with a starburst on the underside of the wings, and in some cases with yellow text on the top as well. So we're coming towards the end of the display now, and this, at an airfield-based show, would be the final manoeuvre, with the exception of the landing itself. We might get an extra bonus pass to say farewell here, but the gear is now down, and this will be for a dirty barrel roll, another stunningly graceful manoeuvre. Now that, to me, beats any afterburning fast jet. Well, that was a fantastic display indeed, and we're very much looking forward to seeing its final airshow performance later today. So just to address a question that's been asked in the chat about coupon codes, we did have a discount code available yesterday and the day before, which I've seen some discussion about, and yeah, that won't work at the moment because it expired before the start of the airshow. However, we are in the process of setting up a new one. We'll have that set up for you in a few minutes' time, so more details to come. While we set that up, let's take a look at another clip from Thursday practices. Now, yesterday, because of the curtailment of the flying display due to the extreme weather that we experienced here in Leszno, we didn't get a chance to see the famous Antidotum Airshow night show. However, we did get a little taste of the sort of thing that we expect to see tonight, when the weather will be far fairer than it was at the same time yesterday on Thursday night, when the Polish Air Force Tiger demo team performed a very, very impressive rehearsal. So let's take a look at a recording of that.
Speaking of Gs, the F-16 and 9G airframe has a 30-degree reclined seat that enables the pilot to withstand those high G forces under pressure, and of course a demonstration of high speed. Here's the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Running in now from the left, just about 100 feet above the ground, and of course you can see the navigation lights going, the burner is on.
Poland came to acquire the F-16 in the early 2000s. The country badly needed to modernise its Soviet-era Air Force, and a very aggressive three-way competition ensued, pitting the F-16 against the Gripen and the Mirage 2000. The F-16 not only offered impressive operational capability, but it also won on the basis of political and economic considerations. Operates a total of 48. They are known as the Jastrob in Polish service, which translates as the Hawk. They equipped 3 squadrons, and they were delivered between 2006 and 2008. At the time of their delivery, they were the most advanced F-16s in NATO, fitted with the latest available avionics at that time. And we are getting some flares. The aircraft spiralling up and now about to spiral down again. The engine is a General Electric's F100-229, producing a little over 29,000 pounds of thrust, and we have felt every single one of those pounds of thrust today.
Very aggressive display, even made so more dramatic with this setting sunset that we have in front of us.
Yeah. And it looks to me like we are now seeing the aircraft decelerate into a high alpha, low speed pass. This will be followed by a muscle climb, so another very good demonstration of the power of this aeroplane. And watch out for the flares during the muscle climb. This isn't just a display that you see and hear. This is what you feel.
You feel. Here's a high-speed pass.
So that is just a small part of the night show programme that we're expecting to see tonight. The weather will be fine by then. Already we are enjoying nice skies and pleasant temperatures. The wind is quite high for the time being, but it will drop off over the course of the afternoon, and I'd say it's already not nearly as bad as it was an hour or so ago, when it was quite literally whistling through all of the barriers and guy ropes that we have around our filming and commentary position. So let's take a quick look at some of the other displays that we haven't seen yet, but which we expect to see tonight as part of the night show. So all that coming up over the next 7 hours or so. We are just 10 minutes away from the start of the flying programme, and I'm very pleased to say that our coupon code is now ready to go. If you use the code Leszno1, that will get you 30% off your subscription to watch.planestv.com, and it is over on that website that you can watch the continuation of this stream, because we're about to switch off on YouTube and Facebook as the flying display begins, and it will be exclusive to our streaming service from now on. So do head over there. You'll get 30% off your first 3 months subscription by using the code Leszno1. That won't just get you access to the rest of today's live broadcast, but it will also get you access to our archive of Airshow programmes stretching back 35 years and our upcoming live broadcasts as well. Those upcoming broadcasts include the Royal International Air Tattoo, and we have here a little look at some of the displays, just some of the displays that we expect to be broadcasting as part of that display later in July. So all that coming up in less than a month. 6 days of live airshow action from the Royal International Air Tattoo, brought to you by Plains TV. We are really looking forward to that. If you would like to watch it all, and indeed if you would like to watch today's flying action, then the discount code Leszno1 will get you 30% off our streaming service, your first 3 months membership of our streaming service, watch.plainstv.com. I'll say that again, the discount code is Leszno1 for 30% off your first 3 months. I'm just going to do one final run through of some of the highlights of today's flying programme. We're starting with a quartet of helicopters, including the W3 Sokol of the Czech Air Force. We've got the Slovenian Air Force PC-9, aerobatic team Orlik of the Polish Air Force. From Flying Legends, the F4U Corsair. We've got the Equipe de Voltige from the French Air and Space Force, the Jalazny Aerobatic Group, the T-28 Trojan from the Flying Bulls, Rich Goodwin in the Jet Pits, the M346 Bielik of the Polish Air Force, the A-26 Invader Millionaire S, the Swiss PC-7 team, including a special flypast, P-51D Mustang Francis Dell, possibly then a special surprise. I'm just going to say it's a large multi-engine aircraft. We await more confirmation of that. And then we have the Swedish Air Force SK.60 with its final ever airshow appearance, 2 Alpha Jets from the Flying Bulls, Polish Air Force Hercules, Swiss Super Puma, Team Blanix, F-16, and then many pyro shows, including the TS-11, Team Thunder, Bo 105, a C-130 flare dump, Bushcat demo team, Scandinavian air shows, LLP, Laser Light and Pyro Display, the Flying Dragons, and Aerosparx. It is a jam-packed 7 hours of flying. So we're going to say farewell now to our viewers on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for joining us over the past few days as we've been broadcasting the arrivals and practices here. And if you would like to watch the airshow proper, do sign up to watch.plainstv.com. If you're already watching on watch.plainstv.com, stay with us. We're going to take a break of a couple of minutes and just show you some of the general scenes around the airport, and we'll be back with our live commentary and filming very shortly. The flying display just 6 minutes away.